Let's say you have a lot of money. And by a lot, I mean hell a lot. Let's add to this hypothesis. Yes, unfortunately, the hypothesis that you are fond of supercars as well. All your money goes on Koenigsegg, Maserati, Rolls Royce, and Moco Brown Bugatti maybe. Riches, right? But now all the money is gone. Sitting beside your cars, admiring them, and after that deep ecstasy leaves you, you realize, damn it, from where will I get the money for gas and their maintenance? Oops, guess what? Check and mate. A budget is important. I am Tanay Purohit and let's get started with 7 important steps to creating and managing a project budget. Step 1. Identify project scope. You must first understand the project scope, dates and deliverables before you can estimate the expenses associated. You may require personal assistance. For instance, if a large project must be finished quickly, as a result, project management budgeting requires a clearly defined project plan. Creating a work breakdown structure for the project is the best course of action. You can record every step of the work required to complete a project at a precise level using the work breakdown structure. From there, determining the resources needed for budgeting is much simpler. Defining resources is step 2. You can start putting together the budget's components after you know what a project entails. This refers to figuring out the resources needed to finish a job. Talking specifically about launching software products for numerous businesses, project budgets consider the same 4 components plus a 5th category for extras depending on the project's needs. Staffing is the primary and most expensive expense. Do you need more team members for your project? How many and for how long? If so, the time should be expressed in hours if the new employees will be paid hourly. You start with an hour's work, but it turns out to be an hour's work on Miller's planet. That's way too much. Let's not even get there. Therefore, the staffing budget is of paramount importance. If not, then who will do the work? Equipments. Equipment can be included as tools like project management software, or it might be hardware like an excavator for a construction project. What tools are needed for your project? Add this to your list of expenses. Your project's nature may need some spending on marketing and sales. An advertisement budget, for instance, is essential when launching a new product. Even though some projects might not require marketing or sales charges, if they do, make sure to account for fees and sales commission. Training. When a project is started, organizational change management is typically introduced to some extent. Training is needed for changes. The investment in training will increase as the shift is more significant. Other costs. Depending on the need of a specific project, there are definitely additional costs to consider. Travel costs must be included in the project if you have to travel for the project. If outside businesses are used, their cost must be taken into consideration too. Make a list of every person and thing you'll need to finish the job properly and on time. Match the resources needed for the project to what is currently on hand. If there is a gap, it shows the range of things requiring further spending. You can then decide on the budget itself from there. Now comes the research intensive part. Assigning the amount. But there's a catch. Look into previous spending plans for projects with a similar scope. Perform internet research or consult team members who are knowledgeable about the different project components and associated costs. But make sure the data doesn't stretch over decades, or else inflation will surprise you. And I guess this was obvious. Vatsal, this script. Anyway, It's vital to estimate expenses for some resources. This is especially true when it comes to personnel, since time and employee wages differ from person to person. Before we head on, let me introduce you to Love, Empathy and Project Management. The book discusses how to have an empathetic relationship with your team, not just telling them what to do, but also how to accomplish it. The link is in the description. Build your budget in step 4. You'll have your estimations once you've gone through the list of resources needed for the project and given amounts. Don't forget to allocate money for emergencies in your budget. In most projects, an unforeseen event raises expenses above initial projections. Overestimating budgets to prevent exceeding cost isn't the right solution. And it is quite impossible to forecast which tasks will end up costing more than anticipated. It is plausible to believe that some of them will. Money is budgeted for dealing with unplanned but statistically predictable cost increases. Funds allocated for this purpose are called contingency reserves. Punch the data into some project management program or another tool that your business employs for this reason. It's beneficial to group items together. For instance, a training bucket should contain all the line items connected to training, such as printing expenditures for training materials. Make a note of any assumptions that were made when developing your budget. This is crucial since once a project starts, some assumptions can prove accurate while others won't, leading to project spending diverging from the budget. If the budget covers a sizable amount of time, often longer than a month, you should give a time frame. This makes it possible to clearly identify any recurring expenses in the budget. It also aids in determining when specific expenditures will surface. Step 5. Getting a thumbs up. Be ready to defend the items and amounts when you submit your project budget to stakeholders or other company leaders who must approve it. At this point, you should emphasize important underlying premises and supporting evidence such as the staffing model. Lastly, discuss the budget with the other project team members to gain their input. The second set of eyes can see omitted items and validate the correctness of the totals. This also aids in preventing budget errors just prior to requesting approvals. Might turn out you remember staffing but not the software they were to work on. Now that would be a Tyrion Lannister movement post trial by combat for Joffrey's murder. The sixth step is managing cash flow. If the financing for the project is not available when it is required, even if the overall spending on the project is equal to or less than the anticipated amount, the project may still be in jeopardy. There is a natural conflict between the project manager who wants to make sure there is enough money available to cover project expenses and the finance staff at the company who do not want to pay for the usage of money that is simply sitting in a checking account. If activities go over budget, the project manager would like to have as much cash on hand as feasible. Management reserves are there to facilitate the change in project scope. For instance, if a new technology were to be developed that would significantly improve your project, it would be worthwhile to incur the additional expense and alter the project scope. They can be included in the overall project budget, even though, unlike contingency reserves, they are unlikely to be used and are not included in the project's budget baseline. Before we finally move to our last step, do you remember Miller's Planet? Yeah, which movie was it? Type it down in the comment section and let me know how was it. Step 7. The final step. A project manager needs to evaluate the budget on a regular basis. Analysis of earned value. Earned value management is a technique that is frequently used for projects with a medium to high level of complexity. EVM is a technique for periodically comparing the project's budgeted expenses with its actual costs. The planned actions are combined with thorough cost estimates for each task. It allows for the partial completion of activity if some of the details costs are covered but not all of them. And with this, we come to an end. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll take a leave and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.